participant number stopped rising, so there's one more. So welcome everyone. My name is Lisa Broski. I'm the Youth Employment Coordinator at the Ability Center. Really quick before we get moving, I just want to let everyone know that we do have Paula interpreting here for anyone that needs that. And then we hopefully will have a captioning service providing live captioning as well. We're, I think, waiting on that, but it should be starting soon, hopefully. Just as a reminder, this is set up webinar style, so all the viewers can only see and hear the panelists. Okay, the captioner is here, but have to be assigned as captioner to be able to start. Okay, so Lisa Justice is going to take care of that. So the captioning will be starting soon, but only viewers can see the panelists and hear us, but we can't see or hear you. So if you do have a question, feel free to utilize the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and then at the end of the presentation, we will read those to the panelists to answer. And just a quick reminder, today is the service provider webinar. We do have future webinars in the next couple weeks. Next Thursday, August 20th, will be virtual learning for students with disabilities under IDEA and ADA. And then the following Thursday, August 27th, is a parent advocate roundtable. And then in the near future, the date is to be determined. We will also be having a school district planning during COVID webinar. So please feel free to tune in to all of those as well.
Hey, thank you all for joining us today. My name is Sarah Heldman. I'm the Youth Recreation Coordinator here at the Ability Center, and I have the privilege of introducing you to our panelists. So we have representatives from occupational, physical, and speech therapy here today, and they're representing their disciplines, but they do all work in pediatrics and school-based, but they're here to represent kind of their discipline of therapy at large. So I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves by sharing their name and kind of their professional background and any significant work experiences that they'd want to share. So Kelly, would you mind starting us out, followed by Rachel and then Luke?
Sure. Hi, I'm Kelly Gelske, and I'm an occupational therapist. Graduated from the University of Toledo many years ago, and have been working in school-based therapy on and off since I graduated, but since 2012 full-time. And I also work at the University of Toledo as an adjunct faculty member there. Is there more you wanted me to give, Sarah?
No, that's good.
Okay, I guess I'm up next then. I'm Rachel Glass. I'm a speech therapist. I too graduated from the University of Toledo in 2012 and have been working since for a public school district. I work exclusively with preschool students, but I have some experience with elementary age students as well and above. But my passion is early education. And my cat is interrupting this meeting because I'm working from home. And I am excited to be a part of this and looking forward to discussing maybe problem solving some of the issues that I think we've all been sort of blindsided with in the last year or so.
My name's Luke Hodulik. I'm a physical therapist, and I attended Bowling Green State University for my undergrad, and then the Medical College of Ohio for grad school. I work in pediatrics now, like the rest of the panel, and I see patients from 3 years old all the way up to 21 or 22. And I covered districts east of Toledo from Oregon down to Woodmore, Lakota, Genoa, and out east towards Port Clinton.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. So first question, you each represent a different discipline of support staff. Can you provide some information regarding the skills you address or your scope of practice in schools? Who would like to start? If you want to go in the same order, however, that makes sense.
Okay, so I guess I will start. As an occupational therapist, our discipline serves to or strives to serve the whole person, not just one specific area. But when we look at how OT functions in the schools, we are primarily looking at how the student is able to access the curriculum, to access their environment within the school building, and to be able to be as independent as possible throughout their school day. So that may include areas such as social emotional, looking at self-help skills, looking at behavior management, possibly looking at pre-vocational and vocational skills. In my area, I primarily, like Rachel, I primarily work in early childhood, but I do have some experience with the older kiddos. And oftentimes we're seen as the handwriting specialist or the person who does fine motor. But we are so much broader than that, although those are the areas that we do primarily work in. Another area that is near and dear to my heart when working with kiddos is the sensory processing area. And so often you will see OTs working with kiddos in how they're able to process their environment from a sensory standpoint. So those are mostly the areas that we look in. And one of the things that I think is most important, though, is for people to understand that we're here to enable students to access their curriculum, access their school. And that's our primary focus.
I am sort of like Kelly in that, you know, I'm a speech therapist, and the first thing that people think of when I say speech therapist is the speech sound production. So working on, you know, certain sounds, R is a hard one, things like that. But especially in preschool and I would say in school age as a whole, we're really working on the whole child as well. And I think I've really learned that from working with other disciplines. OT and PT have been really helpful in opening my eyes to the whole child. But I think that my area is closest to, say, an intervention specialist or a almost sort of a school psychologist. We kind of blur the lines because we are so focused on cognitive ability, social communication, you know, social emotional health and well-being. I think that's a lot of what I'm seeing right now is working with kids who may have, you know, trauma or, you know, just have some issues that maybe come out as behavior, but they're really some sort of communication to let people know that something's going on with these kiddos. So I primarily work on the language aspect of things, you know, like social interaction, turn taking, communication back and forth. That's my main objective for most kids. I do work on the speech sound disorders with some kids, but I mostly focus on the more language part of things and really getting kids to have more functional language skills, functional communication skills. That's my biggest goal.
Okay, so for PT, first thing that I would say is I would echo what Rachel and Kelly said about treating the whole body, the whole patient. We look at about everything when it comes to what our scope is. What I mean by that is the scope might be narrow in the schools for us for PT, But when we do address, say, mobility, we're going to look at the whole body when we do that. So in the schools for physical therapy, a lot of times this is something that isn't entirely understood by everyone, is how narrow our scope actually is for PT. We're all about access, the school environment, walking or wheelchair mobility, managing doorways, stairs, crowded hallways. Maybe for some kids, it's being able to carry their book bag or school supplies from place to place. And then the other area that we really look at a lot is seating for those kids who maybe aren't quite as mobile, getting them in a good seating option for them to be able to learn throughout the day. So, and having said that, it's everything that entails. For seating, for example, if a kid has some tight hamstrings or anything else in the legs or upper body that affects their positioning, then we're going to look at interventions to address that. So that's what I mean when I say we look at the whole body, but it's narrow in the scope. So I think that's a lot of times that might be a bit of a misnomer, whereas in the schools, we're not going to see kids necessarily for something they would see in outpatient, like, somebody who injures their foot in a basketball game is not a kid that we would see in the schools. So it's more chronic conditions.
Thank you. I think you all gave really great, all-encompassing definitions of your areas of practice, so I appreciate that. Obviously, back to school this year is very different than our typical years. So can you speak a little bit about how you're adjusting to that and your service delivery methods? And you all kind of giggled a little bit because I know it's changing every day. So as of today, maybe speak to what it looks like today.
Sorry, I didn't realize I had my mute on. Oh, and there my video went out. Okay, there we go. So yeah, things are definitely changing on a day-to-day basis. When all of this started back in March, I think we all thought it was going to be sort of a temporary thing and that this school year was going to go back to normal. And as we've all seen, that's not the case, unfortunately. And so I have spent more time this summer educating, not even really re-educating, but educating myself on different strategies that I can use with my kiddos at school. Initially, I was hoping that our district would be going back in some sort of in-person fashion. And my district, unfortunately, is not doing that straight off. So we're going to be completely virtual. So this is a whole new realm for me, looking at more telehealth options, more virtual options, and how I can help kiddos not being with them, which is a whole different way of treating than I have ever done. And so lots of seminars this summer, lots of learning new methods, learning new ways. I think in thinking about how I'll be focused in my service delivery, always previously I've been very student-centered and very teacher-centered. How can I help a kiddo within their classroom? How can I support the teacher to help the kiddos in their classroom? And while parents have always been a part of that, I see the parent role as being much more important this year. I'm going to need their help. this year. And so that's a huge consideration for me anyway. And I think across the board with other OTs who I've spoken with, that's something that they're all taking into consideration, is the fact that the parent is going to play a much bigger role. Parent or caregiver will be playing a much bigger role in what I'm doing. I'm doing a lot of resource digging, and recently, actually just within the past week, a lot of resources have come down from our national association, and I breathed this huge sigh of relief when I started digging into all that, because it's just full of all kinds of information, all kinds of links to different websites, information that I can directly pass on to parents, information I can give to teachers to help them. Another area that I'm looking at is really trying to maintain a lot of flexibility. And I think that that's going to be a huge key to everyone, is being flexible. The rules keep changing. The focus and goals keep changing. And so I think we're all going to have to be very flexible in the upcoming year. I'm going to make a big sign and put that like right in front of me throughout the next coming weeks here as we start delving back into what we're going to be doing. So your turn, Rachel.
Yay. All right. So I've been reading a lot of the same things as Kelly. You know, in nature, speech therapists, I think, are typically like a type A personality. We know how to be flexible to some degree, but we're used to sort of like, you know, having a little bit more control, or having a chosen path that we hope to go on, and we're used to things being the way that they were, and they're just not anymore. So I think flexibility is going to be one of the biggest things. I think this all has reminded us of some of the simplest things that we've sort of lost sight of, and that is the biggest part of this will be working as a team, whether that's interdisciplinary as far as related services, OT, PT, speech, but also with the teacher, with building administration, with the families, with communities. I think one of the biggest things that we're going to have to work on is, like I said, working as a team and having like an open communication as far as what's going to work best for students and families. What resources can we share even beyond our discipline, whether it's you know, finding some family supports, finding respite care for, you know, parents and families, and ways to make some of the learning that we have to do fun, because that's how kids best engage, and then families can see that that's, you know, it's something that they can all enjoy together, hopefully to some degree, rather than, oh gosh, we have to sit down and do this lesson. So I think another big thing to keep in mind is that we're all sort of learning this as we go. We're trying to absorb the professional side. We're trying to absorb as much as we can before school starts, but this has been such an adjustment for all of us, and particularly for me, and early childhood, the population we work with are just not the type, first of all, age, period, even if they were typically developing, it's just not, it's not going to be ideal, because kids focus at this age at 3 to 5 years old is not great anyway. But I think, like Kelly said, we just have to remind ourselves, be flexible, be honest, open communication. It's just going to be, like our director said, a little bit of a roller coaster ride, but hopefully we can all get through it together.
Okay. I think one of the things that Kelly said is super important to remember, and that was, we need your help. You know, with the distance learning, especially, I think especially for PT, because our what we normally do, there's a couple things I always tell people. Number one, we're very hands-on. And so obviously with distance learning, we can't, my hands aren't at your house, so I can't do everything that I would typically do. So that would be one where we would need your help, and communication is huge for us to be able to go back and forth with the parents. I would say also, no question is too trivial. I mean, there's a lot of nuance with PT interventions. So, where you place your hands, how much assistance, that sort of thing. If you ever have any question about that, reach out so we can clarify everything. But that would be the first one. Is it's very hands-on for us. The second one that I tell people, which is what makes it so important that we do have help if we're not going to be actually physically in person, is by nature, most of things that PTs address are something that the patient is unsafe doing on their own. Like, for example, if we want a kid to be able to do stairs in his school, the only reason I'm seeing that kid is because he can't do it right now safely. So a kid that has a stairs goal is going to need help with the interventions that we give him, the treatment interventions, and that's where the hands-on stuff comes in. And that's probably the biggest area where I say PT is differentiated quite a bit from the other two professions. It is that you just look at it, and I have had parents see a goal, like an IEP goal in a meeting, and maybe their response is a little bit of shock, where they'll say like, oh, this, my son can't do 12 stairs on his own without a handrail. And my answer is always, I know he can't right now, and that's why we're here. That's what we're going to work on. So if your son or daughter has a goal like that, and you're working on that at home with them, definitely do not hesitate to ask us the different techniques we use to make it safe. That would be the biggest thing. And then beyond that, I think that a lot of the districts that I cover anyways, they are setting up days for kids who might be on an IEP, even particularly for PT to come in for appointment times. And then there's other districts who are bringing their MD classrooms in 4 or 5 days a week. So there are districts that are trying to accommodate that to try to cut down on how much teletherapy or telehealth or telelearning that's being done.
Thank you. Do you all have any tips or tricks for how families can practice therapy skills at home or navigate transitioning between in-person and virtual learning?
Okay, so from an occupational therapist standpoint, I have a few tips that I can provide. One of them is to initially, right from the beginning, start a routine and try to stick with it. I realize you may have to make some shifting here and there, but setting a routine for your student, especially if your kiddo is going to be doing all virtual learning from home, setting a routine up, I think, is one of the biggest keys. Students, especially those with disabilities, often need that, and I'm sure parents do understand that and know that already. But carrying that over into schooling and learning from home, I think will be critical. A daily routine and even a weekly routine, I think will be very important. And your routine should include time for your student to be able to get up and move around and have that quote recess time that they would have had at home. Rachel and I both have had very strong opinions on the amount of time that kids spend in front of a screen. And this whole virtual learning thing is blowing our efforts to get kids away from the screen. So having no screen time at home when kids aren't needing to be in front of the screen is important for so many different reasons. And kids need to be able to see things in 3D, not on a screen. And so having that time away will be very important. And having a set lunch time or a set breakfast time in the morning will help with that also. So routine is one of my first tips. Secondly, kind of going along with what Luke had said, is communication. Parents are going to be our main line of working with kiddos. We can't do it without you. And we need and we'll be seeking a good, clear communication line. And it goes both ways. And so any questions that you have along the way, any confusion you may have along the way, which I am totally expecting, please feel free to speak to your therapists, your related service professionals, and get clarification. We're here to help with that. Third, which I think is also very critical, is to create a specific learning space for your student within your home environment, or when in a typical school year, your kid will go to school and that is their learning space. That's what they do there. They know what that environment is about and they know what's in their environment and where to find things. And I think in your home, if a student's going to be doing virtual learning, they should also have that same type of environment available to them, a space where that's where they learn. The area should include a table for which they can put their laptop or computer, whatever they're using. The table should be set up for them, including maybe using a stool for their feet or some pillows to keep them propped up in a proper seating area. Their space should include all of their supplies that they need, and those supplies should be organized for them so that they know where to find things. That's often something at school that teachers will do, is reorganize the desk so that students can find the things that they want. Oftentimes those papers get shoved into the desks, or their cubbies become sort of overwhelmingly full of things that don't need to be there. And so their environment at home should also be organized and reorganized, maybe whether it needs to happen daily or weekly. The space should have good lighting. Students need to be able to see what they're doing, and the idea of looking at a screen all day long and being able to look at what they're writing on paper or reading from a book in front of them, that does take strain on the visual system when they're going from a screen to a book or a screen to paper. So having good lighting in the area, whether you need to bring over a lamp or make the ceiling light a little bit brighter, that will also be critical. And then at the end of the school day, there should be a time for cleanup and reorganization of supplies so that you're ready for the next day. You should end the day with a preparation for tomorrow. And that will help also. Mornings can be crazy. I have kids at home, I know. And preparing yourself the night before will help make your morning go a little bit smoother, hopefully. So those are 3 tips that, that I can provide. So a routine, daily and weekly, communication with your related service professionals, your teachers, administrators at the school, whomever you feel most comfortable with there. We are there and ready for that. And creating a good learning space for your student that will be specific for that student. Those are my tips.
I'm actually really glad Kelly went first because she has some really great tips that I completely agree with, and things I hadn't thought of. So I just learned stuff too. Along with what she's saying, as far as having a routine, I just think, you know, the structure of kids feeling more like, okay, well, this is school time, and then I have home time. That's really hard. It's really hard for us as we work from home. So I think that especially having the space and having the daily routine would really help. I think that my area might be one of the easier areas to work on because my area is sort of something that happens every day, all day. You know, communication, speaking back and forth, things like that. My suggestions are just to, like I said earlier, just to kind of try to make things fun, work on some language stuff during everyday activities, games that you might play with kids. I know that Kelly said that we are very concerned about the screen time that kids have, but I also know that, excuse me, I also know that at this point that it's very necessary and sometimes necessary to keep kids occupied and mom and dad or grandma or whoever to have a break. One of the ways that I see for using screen time appropriately or in a learning way is to make it a little bit more interactive with your kids. So going on and talking about the things that you see, playing games with them, rather than just a kid looking at a screen and you know, taking it in. Talk to them about, you know, what they see, what they're doing, what they predict what's going to happen next in the game or in a story. There's a ton of educational games and things available, especially through like PBS Kids and stuff like that. I'd always encourage those, but again, with additional social interaction and focusing on, you know, language skills, things like that. I think we are going to have to work very hard to help you help your kids. So using us as a resource, not just during the time that we will be, you know, servicing kids, but the times that we can help you find ways to work on things during the, you know, during the day, whether it's during that designated school time or beyond. I think that parents already have their hands full as far as, you know, raising kids and working maybe full-time or part-time, and you know, it's going to be a learning process for all of us. So as Kelly said, and I think we all feel, we are here as a resource. We are here to problem solve with you. Even if we don't know the answer yet, we will work with everyone we know to try and find the answer, to find ways to make this process as best as good as we can. Our hands are sort of tied here. There's no ideal solution. We're just all sort of working through it, and we want to help you and just make the best of it. That's all I can really think of.
Yeah, I think Rachel and Kelly both mentioned communication as being huge. I would echo that as well. Like I mentioned before, there's no question that is too small or too trivial when it comes to the treatment for your kids and their safety. And for me, from a PT perspective. So one of the things for us is, if I go back to the stairs example, if that's a goal your son or daughter has, and I understand not everybody has stairs in their home, or different seating options. Not everyone has the same type of chair that is at the school, and vice versa. So when it comes to something like that, make sure you keep the communication lines open. And this is something that, the PT would probably help lead. We'll ask you, okay, this is what we were doing at school. What do you have at home that we can use to mimic this? So that'd be a big one for us. The other thing I would mention too is we as the providers know that you as parents are getting a ton thrown at you when you're doing the virtual learning. So speaking for myself in general, sometimes I wanted to try to keep things maybe to the bare essentials at times, not knowing how much you guys were dealing with. We don't want to overwhelm you. So looking at it from that perspective, from the service providers, I, as a PT in my job, I'll give you everything that you need, and then, I'll try to lead that. But like I said, then too, don't ever be afraid to reach back out, because we don't want to overwhelm you. So if you want to, any question you may have, I don't want you to feel like you're bothering us or anything. Sometimes we're not sure how much you think is too much from us. So just keep that in mind. We know you guys have a lot to deal with. So in that regard, I want you guys to say, if you feel like you need more questions answered or what have you, just don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Thank you. That's a lot of really great tangible kind of tips and tricks that families can use. So, and I love speaking about just, setting some routine and setting up learning environments. It's really good. And using what you have available to you. We do have some time left for some questions. So there's a few already in the queue, but you can ask them using the question and answer box on Zoom, or if you're joining us on Facebook, you can comment there, and our PR manager, Mallory, is kind of texting them over to Lisa and I, so we don't have to have too many screens open at once. But one of the questions that came in was about platforms that you'll be using. So in the spring, this parent is talking about that they received weekly emails of activities to complete and kind of that Blizzard bag approach. So they're wondering if now, moving forward into this school year, will there be face-to-face time with the therapy practitioners? And if so, what kinds of platforms would you be utilizing?
I know that will vary district to district. I would anticipate the district that I am in is planning to use Google Classroom, and I think across the entire district, that is what the expectation is going to be. I know for myself, I had never used Google Classroom before, so I need to educate myself on that. We had a little bit of that in the spring, but that was in the spring, and of course I haven't used it all summer. So I think for myself anyway, I want to work with my different teachers and determine what is it they're doing in their classroom and how can I fit in terms of the platform, whether I would have my own separate classroom or whether I would emerge myself into the teacher's classroom is yet to be seen. I think some of that may vary depending on the teacher, depending on the student, depending from therapist to therapist, they may be doing that different also. But hopefully, at least in the district I'm in, it will be consistent in terms of platform. And then, of course, email will be available also for communication. So that will be a platform that parents will have also, is just using email. I don't, Luke's in a different district than Rachel and I are in, so maybe he can speak to that a little more too.
Yeah, for us, it varies. I cover 9 different districts, so it's different for each one. There are some districts that would mandate, in the spring anyways, they mandated a Zoom meeting, and then others were just like you mentioned, like the blizzard bag sort of thing. But you know, for us in physical therapy, I'm really hoping that we don't have to do that much of the video conferencing, because it's really difficult for me to call that physical therapy for a lot of the patient population. You know, we know that teletherapy is allowed legally, but it's not always appropriate. So, and I know sometimes that's the only option you have in this type of situation that we're in right now. But one thing that I've been trying to advocate for is like a lot of our schools, like I mentioned earlier, they're setting up some times for kids to come in for appointments, or like the MD rooms are going to be in class 4 or 5 days a week, when necessarily the general population might not be. Another option that I'm trying to push for, at least for PT, is maybe being able to do some home visits, if that's something that the parent is open to. Because I just think that for us anyways, when doing the email communication is good, it ends up turning into almost more of a home exercise program than PT treatment. And I think that for a lot of the kids that I see anyways, that's similar to what would happen with the Zoom meetings. So to answer that question, I think that we might not do as many Zoom meetings, at least for PT, because I think we're looking at other options, which makes me happy as a therapist, and because it's just better for the kids.
Thank you. Yeah, and certainly there's variability from school to school and district to district and population to population. So obviously we want to point parents and providers back to their school districts and their home schools to get answers to these very specific questions, but appreciate your experiences and your answers. There's kind of a comment question here. I'm reading off my phone. So this person is saying, I wonder if college students working towards education degrees, and I'll add in there also therapy degrees, could safely be tapped to assist parents who need teaching support, even virtual. It would be a great network to create and have as an option. So I'll kind of spin that into a question. What supports do you think parents can reach out to? Parents are navigating working from home or having to leave the house for work while their students are attending school virtually or a hybrid model. are you aware of any supports that parents can tap into or have any suggestions for that?
Well, I think, and I don't know what the availability is, but I think reaching out to college students is definitely an option for parents. Students who are in educational programs at universities, students who are in therapy programs or health-related programs are seeking opportunities to broaden their knowledge and build their skills. And so that may be a good option, is to reach out to university students to find out if they're available at times to help with some of those things, as maybe in-person tutors, in-person assistants. I have heard of some families who have connected with college students, and I think that's a great thing if that's something that you can make happen on your own. I know personally in my own home, my daughter, who is in high school, has been a help to another family member who has young children, and has in the spring, mostly when we were out of school, she was helping a family member who was at home while the parents were working. So even reaching out maybe to high school students could be an option. It would be more of an evening thing, but maybe to help with homework or help get through some of those things that you just need help with. That could be an option.
That's a great answer. I've seen parents setting up like pods, little communities with their neighbors or, you know, close friends or family members, and kind of rotating days and things as well. So Kelly, I think you put it best when you said everyone needs to be a little bit flexible and creative too. So kind of turning the question back on us as a community and as a support agency, what can we do to support providers in the school for special education?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't know if I have an answer for that.
Send coffee.
Yeah.
I think just doing a webinar like this helps a lot, because these are things that I'm saying today are things that I wish I could have told everybody back in April, you know. So this webinar is a good help, and you know, hopefully a lot of parents are on and taking notes.
Yeah, I think, and Sarah, you're a good resource for this in terms of providing information from the American Occupational Therapy Association. There's all kinds of information that has flowed down from them that could be distributed out to parents. Resources and checklists and guidance, that's all available. And I would assume that APTA and ASHA from speech therapy probably has done the same thing. And so maybe gathering of those and all that information together and having it available for parents, that would just be a wonderful thing.
I think another resource too is the Ohio Department of Education. I was looking online last night, and that was a little bit overwhelming, but I think hopefully they're, you know, I think all the organizations are kind of putting out a lot of the same information, and it just helps to know that, you know, we're all sort of on the same page. And I think this sort of collaboration is really important to problem solve, to support one another. I think the biggest thing that we are all going to need, whether that's professionals or parents, is the coming together, the sense of community, resources. And I think that's probably something that the Ability Center already has, you know, is already a strength. Just connecting people, figuring out ways to get through this. I think that As far as the last question, or one of the earlier questions, and I think sort of ties into everything, we were all sort of learning still in March and April. And I think we are still learning now, but I think that hopefully we've come a little bit further in our understanding of how to best proceed. Like I said, none of this is ideal, but I'm hoping that because we are all in the same boat, that we can really help each other and have this be more of an interaction rather than just whereas before we were kind of just treading water, now hopefully we're doing a little bit more, swimming.
Yes, I like that analogy. We can certainly share some resources out on our website and as a follow-up to this webinar based on the things that you all have mentioned. If there's anything specific you'd like us to share, if you want to send that my way and I can make sure it gets posted. If there's any other questions from our audience, if you want to drop those on Facebook or in the Q&A box. And do you guys have any suggestions for parents who maybe are turning to Pinterest and like the learning environments look really perfect and beautiful and color coordinated? You guys are all shaking your head no already.
I love Pinterest. I love looking at it. But the idea of actually carrying out any of that stuff, it's just like, I forget if it was Luke or Kelly or someone that said, we're going to kind of have to just pare down. Like ideally there's all these things that I would love to be able to do, but really the core focus is going to be working on some basic skills, working on just having a good relationship with everyone and the communication. I love Pinterest. If you are the type that can do that, go for it. But I think that our kids don't need, yes, they need stimulation. Yes, they need structure. Yes, they need creativity and fun, but they don't need you to go all out and spend 24 hours a day doing whatever, balloon decorations, and I don't know.
So specific to setting up a learning environment, Kelly spoke to like the importance of having a nice learning space with appropriate size seating and tables and things. Can you guys offer some tricks on using household items to accomplish that rather than going out and spending money to set up a space?
Yeah, sure. And Sarah, there is a really great resource from AOTA that perhaps you can pass to parents on this. But just setting up, if you have a small table at home, that may work. If not, that's totally okay. Maybe you have a stool at home that a student could sit at, or maybe you have a beanbag chair that you can push up to a small side table, or maybe you're using the kitchen table. Oftentimes for families, that's all they have is the kitchen table, and the kitchen table is fine. But those chairs for at least the little kids can be a bit overwhelming. So, using books to prop up at the seat, or using pillows to prop up the seat so that your kiddo is at the right height to the table, and pushed up from the back of the chair towards the table, using pillows, and that is a great resource. Finding a stool at home to put for the student to rest his or her feet on, so that they're not just dangling. And the little kiddo, you can tell when kids are dangling because they're kind of wiggling all around. But if they have a good support surface, that will help to keep them focused.
I want to echo that too, Kelly. The feet are often neglected in seating options.
Yeah.
And that kind of ties into the whole child picture. What I've learned from working with PTs and OTs is that when a kid is not stable physically, they can't do much else. Their brain can't fully, focus. They can't use their breath support for speaking. It really is important to have that core stability, and also to have a kid have, like Kelly was saying, like a good sensory foundation. So I think too, like you said, as far as Pinterest, it is great to have some fun things, but we also don't want kids overstimulated. I know that there have been some times where it's like there's too much going on. So sometimes I think, I know this is difficult, especially with multiple kids and different home environments, having someplace that is a little bit quieter, so that a kid can focus their attention, so they can hear themselves and hear, you know, any sort of lesson going on or anything like that. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just
No,
that
that's
too.
totally fine. I agree too, Rachel, and the idea of all the distractions around is something that will be important, is removing those playtime things, moving toys out of the way, moving games so that they're out of sight, out of mind, only having the supplies that are needed at that time for school visible in the environment. That will help also. And, you know, at least as a related service provider, sometimes it's just impossible to do all of that. And a simple tool that you could use is throwing a sheet over top of things. Oftentimes, at least for little kids, once it's covered, it's kind of gone from their mind, and they can focus on the one thing that they're supposed to be focusing on in front of them. So, you know, using just a sheet or a towel at home to cover up some of those things that you can't get out of the space, I think will be helpful. And one of the things that I meant to say earlier are supplies. As a related service professional and as a mom who has kind of going through this with her own kids, I'm not expecting that you're going to go out and purchase all of these things, the things that you're seeing on Pinterest. That's not an expectation for me. I want to be able to utilize the resources that you already have in your home, so that you don't feel like this is going to become a huge financial burden to create all of this and to have all the things that you have to have at home. So that goes back to communicating with your related service professional. What things do you have at home that we can use as tools for interventions and for treatment? So that'll, you know, those resources, hopefully you have those things readily available in your home already that we can just use, and you don't have to go out and spend money.
Those are great tips and tricks. Well, thank you all so much for being here, Kelly and Rachel and Luke, and sharing your expertise. I hope that it was fun for you. I know we're all kind of experiencing some Zoom fatigue, but we certainly appreciate you being here, especially as you're preparing to go back to school as well. The recording for this will be available if you want to share it with anyone, and then we'll work on getting some of those resources that you all have mentioned up on our website or on our Facebook page as well. So thank you again so much for being here. Any quick last minute words you'd share? You're ready for the roller coaster ride.
Yep.
We're going to be.
Strap yourself in, put your hands up.
Enjoy the ride.
Right. We're all in it together.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, thank you so much, and we'll look forward to all of you joining us again next Thursday as we continue our series on education. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.